Sex and sex education has always been a touchy subject, but an important one. So why aren't all areas of sex covered in schools?
I think there's a lot of answers for that. I think education. I think that a lot of, obviously the teachers tend to be the people that are giving the sex education these days. I mean, obviously there are parents, but let's just say that it's teachers for now. They have to deal with the backlash from parents. It's a bit of a battle because even, heterosexual sex education is optional. It's only just been made a requirement literally in the last week. So at any time previously, a child could be pulled out. And that's just heterosexual, So to add the LGBT into it, I think there's a fear. There's a fear that you can, encourage your children to be homosexual or transgender, which of course isn't true. But if there isn't the education, then this is the kind of knock-on effect that will happen, and that's why a lot of the work that Support You do is not just focused on working with young people. It's working with professionals such as teachers to break down some of the stigmas, because a lot of the time it won't be that the teachers are against anything LGBT, but they just haven't had the education themselves and don't feel that they can educate young people in return.
Well, it's something that most people in their lives are going to do anyway. So, I mean, along with most things in life, it all comes with experience. But some stuff like sex, you can't just go straight in with the experience. There's obviously got to be the teaching and the learning behind it all to make sure that obviously you're keeping it safe and all sorts. So it's something that has to be made aware for children at any age, really, so long as they're made appropriate to do so. I mean, it's just something that's got to be taught, and the earlier you can do it, the better, before people start making those experiences wrong.
So it is important because, like I said, it's part of life, whether you're LGBT plus or not. It's a part of life. It's who someone is. So that's important for the factor. It's their life. The second thing would be the fact that they don't touch up on much detail, mostly because the people who are teaching it are not aware, they're not taught, they don't know how to genuinely go into detail onto heterosexual relationship. Like, it's easy, they know it themselves, they've been taught that. But when it comes to something they don't know, this is not for every single one, but most will say, I don't know much about it. I'll touch up on the subject of homosexuality, but I don't know about it, so I can't say it's easy to educate someone if I don't know myself. So it's that lack of knowledge there of why it's not already being taught, and that if it is being taught, it's minimal.
I think that it's important for children to learn at like a middle age, for them to learn sex ed, because then it just leads them in to like the future, for them to know what they're getting into without just like wobbling through life not knowing.
Because in my opinion, some parents don't like talking about it to their children, and so if I teach it at schools, the parents may have a go at the schools, and that will actually get them into a little trouble, and the kids might not understand it.
It certainly does seem that there are a lot of blank spaces in sex education, particularly upon education about LGBTQ star.
Mostly it's there's still a stigma with regards to alternative relationships and alternative sexualities or gender variation. Primarily that's parental or it's societal. So if you're looking at faith schools, for instance, it might be that they're trying to keep the teachings of their faith, which may be against LGBT relationships. If it's state schools or other schools, then parents will have that option to take their kids out of it. There is a drive towards more of that for the future, but not enough of it at the moment. It's not the children themselves that don't want it. When I've been in schools and been talking to kids themselves, they're really interested to learn about those kind of things, but it's normally parental or societal pressures that are stopping it from happening.
There is a difference between teaching reproduction and sex education. Teaching reproduction is about reproduction, and therefore the output would be offspring. So and that is heterosexual sex. Sex education is a different category, and that should probably contain information about all sorts of relationships and not only the process of sexual activity.
Why is it important to educate children about consent before puberty?
Consent's a massively important part of any kind of sexual relationship because you're invading someone else's personal space, and even the idea of a 5-year-old being forced to hug their grandmother is still breaking the consent boundary of a 5-year-old. So teaching them at that young age that they can actually say no when Granny Smith wants a cuddle or a kiss or whatever else leads them on to be able to say no when it gets later on in life. And equally the converse is true, so getting someone to understand that they need consent, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, to actually touch someone else's body in any way, whether it's sexual or non-sexual, is vitally important to successful relationships.
What is the most ridiculous thing you've heard about LGBT plus sex and sexuality?
It's this, I guess, theory that gay people always have sex in the same way, whether it's lesbians or whether it's gay men, and that people often see what they see in pornography. For instance, with trans women like myself, they see a trans woman in porn and assume that that's how trans women have sex, and that's not always the case because porn isn't real. So that's one of the biggest stigmas that we face, is that people take assumptions either from TV shows or from pornography and that's how things happen in real life, and really isn't.
Statistics show that a number of STI cases since 1999 have gone up by 50% for boys and 70% for girls. This may be due to sex education being more prevalent and people being able to recognise STIs and STDs sooner. But what is the public opinion? Here in Reading's main shopping street, the public opinion seems to be very much in favour of LGBTQ inclusive sections in sex education.
That's correct. They shouldn't be discriminated. They should be free for all, people what they are, what they are. I have a niece that's bisexual and good on her, and I have a friend's daughter who's gay. Good for them. That's what I say.
I think that there should definitely be an LGBT section in sex ed, because there wasn't one when I was in school, and I know a lot of people that maybe felt a bit more disincluded or confused about it because of the lack of education, and it kind of makes it seem like it's not normal, which today is really backdated and stupid. It should be just as included as heterosexual sex education, I think.
I think everyone should get the same amount of information necessary to have a safe sex life, as it's something that can change your life forever. A bad decision or a uninformed, misinformed decision can change your life forever.
I'm here in Reading, where there are many support centres such as Support You, specifically geared towards teens who are a part of the LGBTQ community. What is the best way for LGBT teens to find groups and group sessions in their area?
Google's always your friend, but here at Support You we have youth groups and support sessions that can be offered to younger people, and so we're always a good place to start. So going on LGBT meetup or just Googling LGBT youth groups, there's 2 here in Reading. So there's, Support You, which is every Tuesday 5 till 8, and that's here at Castle Street. And then on Wednesday there's another called Reach Out, and I don't know the exact timings, but
So there's 2 ways. The first thing I'd say is Support You if you're in Thames Valley, but that can only be found via the fact that you are searching in social media. You are searching into Google, web search and surfing for LGBT support, and then you find LGBT support as a vast, and you can find youth through that. I think most people type in LGBT youth support. It's very limited, so going in directly through the Borough Council or directly through an adult service that is there, not porn or gay, whatever, but I'm saying find some kind of support service like Support You. We do all ages. We're not just aimed at youth, but a youth project is a main thing for us. So I think there's the first one, and the second one is Stonewall. Do any of you know what Stonewall is? It's a training for staff and members of the LGBT community within an education setting. So Stonewall, very, very popular and famous, pretty much. You probably know the posters, you know, some people are gay, get over it, and that kind of thing. The big red poster, yeah, that's Stonewall. So if you type in Stonewall onto the web searcher again, and you will type in your local area, they'll come up with something, and they'll try and direct you to the nearest one they're aware of. So I would definitely look into that.
So what have we gathered? Well, the rise of sexual education can only be good. Why sex ed talks don't go into as much depth into LGBTQ star sex as they should in the general importance of the inclusion of an LGBTQ star section in sex education. As you can see, there are drastic changes that need to be met about the current state of school systems to accommodate everyone's sexual orientation and identity to ensure that all young people are educated and safe.